Human beings are going to grow into people of influence, and the key that we're giving them is the love. If you want a community that is full of love, not hate, you've got to be able to plant love in that community.
On a recent trip to visit two schools we support in Bali, I took the opportunity to catch up with the co-founder and visionary behind Provision International and Hope School 1 and 2, John Stevens.
That's the thing in life. If you've got an opportunity to do something, do it to the best of your ability.
John and his Balinese-born wife Made are passionate about improving the opportunities and expanding the possibilities for children by increasing their English language as well as other specialised subjects such as computer skills. To them, knowledge is power and it can help shape the future of the kids, improving the lives of both them and their families.
Other people come every day. They just love that we're building something in their community. And if anybody has a compassion for their society, I mean, why do you do what you do? Because you've got a compassion to help people.
All right, it is a special episode this week as I catch up with a special man and also on site internationally in Bali at Hope School 2, which we'll hear a little bit more. But I just wanted to welcome John Stevens to share. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Steve. Pleasure to have you here, mate.
Yeah, it's been an amazing week. I've spent a week here with John, Made, Miss Julie and the kids here at Hope School, and it's been an absolute amazing experience.
And they loved you. They've loved you.
Yeah. We've had a relationship for about 10 years now. I got introduced by Peter Reeves.
Yes.
In Australia with Compassion, and he said, if you're going to Bali back in 2015, he said, you've got to catch up and visit a school. And I thought the school might have been opened when I arrived, but it wasn't, was it, John?
No, we were in the beginning, but you helped us with our first water tank.
Yeah, yeah.
And at that school now there's 5 water tanks.
Yep.
Because it runs completely off of rainwater.
Yep.
Whereas here we run off of well water.
Yeah, wow.
So,
yeah. So I'd love to start, John, by getting a little bit of a snapshot of your story. What brought you here? And how did that journey start?
In 1974, I first came to Bali as a 21-year-old, and I really started to think about my values as an Australian, having everything materially, but still not happy. And I saw these Balinese people that they had nothing, and they seemed to be happy. And I went back to Australia thinking, these material possessions have got a hold of us. And so I sold up my material possessions, which weren't much as a 21-year-old, like my sound system, my car.
Yep.
Sold them up, and I thought that'll fix it. But there were still, things that need to be adjusted. 1984, I married my wife, Made, who's from Kuta in Bali. And over a period of years, having worked in the fishing industry, we started to come back to Bali occasionally. We raised a family. And then we were in a situation financially to start giving back. And I said to my wife, look, I think it'd be a good thing to go to Bali now that we are financially able and start to help some of the poor people, of which she was one in the early days. So she was selling on the beach.
Yep.
And she learned a bit of English through selling to tourists. Then she saved a bit of money and she built a little restaurant, learnt more English, and then saved a bit more money and made rooms for tourists.
Yeah.
And so she knew that the journey for her was all around knowing English. So with us, when we came back, we didn't know what we were going to do, but we knew it would require that we would teach English somehow or other.
Yep.
So that started in different forms. It just started one-on-one. Kids who were really keen, they would come to us and we'd teach them English one-on-one. Sometimes it was just teaching English through SMS messages.
Wow.
Yeah, so, one person just would SMS, you'd SMS, back, forward. And in the end, they got a good job through learning English by SMS.
Yeah, wow.
So you don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
But it ended up that we felt if we're going to really impact this area, and there's a lot of prostitutes come out of this area and they're young, we've got to be able to give them skills so they can get better jobs rather than go into prostitution. Now, here in Bali and many other places in the world, prostitution is a norm, you know, and people are so poor they don't mind if their girls especially go off to be in that area. Yeah. But, you know, they get their money, the mums and dad gets their money, and they're not really thinking, what is my daughter doing? But we knew what they were doing.
Yep.
And we've been rescuing those people, not on the coalface, but back where they come from. So we're rescuing them from going into that, business.
Yep.
And I don't know what your thoughts are, but, you know, I had a daughter, I've got a daughter, and now we've got grandchildren, and our two grandchildren who are girls are at that very age where if they were here, they'd be going into prostitution as 13 and 14-year-olds, you know. So I don't know about you, but that really jerked on Made's heart, you know. And Made, but she's really sensitive to those things, and she can see that God had blessed her to be able to get out of that poverty mentality. And it is a poverty mentality because they're living in poverty. It's not a poverty mentality because they've got stuff. It's a poverty mentality because they've got nothing.
Yeah.
You've seen.
Yeah.
You've seen what they've got.
Yep.
You know, what is it? How does it compare with what we grow up with in the West?
Well, we grow up in the West with a lot, and we're very materialistic.
Totally.
You know, and our education system's different, our opportunities are different.
Yeah.
And I think over here it's really been, from the first time that I visited, it was really about trying to, I suppose, hijack a little bit or show the kids a little bit of a different mindset, and really show them that there are other opportunities out there. You know, I know when I visited the first school and there was a rock breaker there and he had his son there. Yeah. You know, I kind of talked the story about, you know, you've got that kid going, I'm just going to grow up to be a rock breaker. But then if he can learn English, improve his education, showing him that he can possibly go and be a doctor, be an engineer, be a teacher, and really sometimes go away and learn, but also then bring that back to his family, not just from a wealth perspective, but from a knowledge perspective to improve everyone in that village as well, and help them or make a difference in their lives so that they can make a difference in other lives. And I think that's a really key concept.
So one of the things also that we found is we would be going from village to village with a bunch of laptops, and we would set up our laptops in someone's home or in a village hall, and the kids would come and we'd go once a week, but we might do 20 villages once a week. But then we started to realise that as much as they loved that, we needed to make a permanent setup. And so the schools were born out of realising, just like your children need to have a stable environment to grow up in, these kids need to have a stable place, somewhere where they can swing on a swing, somewhere where they can just come and hang out. You've seen the kids that come and hang out. I mean, they come and hang out all hours of the day. We're always available, put it that way. And you might think, oh, well, you know, where do I get my own space? And the thing also is that, yes, we do get our own space. We'll go down to Ahmed for a couple of nights and once a month. But there's such a joy in, you know, in the West, it's like kids go with their mates or they are on a tablet or whatever, playing games, and it's like you're not even there. Whereas these kids come to you, you know, we're playing Uno, we're skipping rope, And that's part of the whole deal, because we may have more interactive time with them than their parents do. Realistically, we might have more interactive time with them than their parents do, because their parents are working to provide a living. Even public schools here, public schools here minimum cost $2 a month, and some parents can't afford $2 a month.
Yep.
That's a reality.
Yeah. And for those listening and for those watching, $2 Australian a month, and some families can't afford that.
That's
$6. And I think it's
not a cappuccino.
And the other thing as well is the point to make to people listening and watching is, obviously there's a public school, so in the morning, and that goes 6 days a week?
Yeah, 6 days.
6 days a week in the morning for about 4 hours, John was telling me. But the kids that come to Hope School, and this week, you know, we've had somewhere around the 50s, 50 kids actually attend this week.
Yes.
The weather reduced our numbers into the 40s a couple of days. But in saying that, the critical thing is that those kids that come, most of them actually come on their own. You know, some of them, their parents drop them, or their brothers or older siblings drop them.
Yeah.
But these kids are actually choosing to come and be part of the community here.
Yes.
The community that you and Made have founded.
Yes.
And I think it's critical that those kids have chosen. And it was interesting, we were swimming the other day.
Yes.
And I said, I haven't seen these boys at school. And you said, they used to come, but they're not interested,
Cool.
They're cool.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, those that are coming, and I don't know how many kids would be in this region, a lot.
Thousands.
Yeah. And you've got 50-odd kids that have chosen this week to not just go for a swim in the afternoon, or obviously some of them would help their parents in some cases, but they've actually chosen to come and be part of this for a good 2 to 3 hours each day, from Monday to Thursday. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And we're used to it now because we've been doing it for a long time. But when we do go back to Australia to visit, that's when there's a stark reality of all the various things that, you live up here and you become more like up here than you are down in Australia. And so the transition for us is that this is more normal now than Australian life. And when I go back to Australia, that feels peculiar.
Yeah.
But the love that we have for the kids is that some people say, do you miss your family? Yeah, of course we miss our family. But we got these kids and their parents are like our family. And we're like their family. And, you've seen the people who come and visit, some of the adults, like Pat Yeoman comes, he comes every day. Other people come every day. They just love that we're building something in their community. And if anybody in any society has a compassion for their society, they want to build something that's good.
Yep.
Right? I mean, why do you do what you do? Because you've got a compassion to help people.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. You've got, good business, and that's cool. But there's more. There's more to life. And for me, I was in the fishing industry, made good money over 40 years, but there was always more. And even when we were first married and on, we were always doing something in the community. We were helping various parts of the community in Australia that were deficient. And, they might have been, some of them were Indigenous communities, some of them were just poorer communities. There's always a need. So someone said to me, in Australia there is no need. And I said to them, I'll go out on the street with you right now and I'll find a need.
Yep.
Right. But I live where we live, fulfilling the need. But if you want, I'll come out on the street with you, and if you would make a commitment, you could fill that need.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but the government in Australia does all that. I said, no, they don't. The government does financial part of it, but there's people need more than just the financial input. People need to have that love, like genuine love.
Yeah.
Right? Like over a period of time, getting to know you, I can say I categorically love you.
Yep.
And your family and your boys, and your children that have come up. And you know, I'm not ashamed to say that. That doesn't mean that you know anything more than there's a genuineness that the salesperson will never have, because the salesperson only looks at you as another sale, and we look at people as being our journey. This is the journey that we're on, and God's placed these people in front of us. So we're not looking so much as for excuses, we're looking for solutions. And so yesterday we had a big rain, massive rain, and we ended up with a lot of rubbish on our property but the solution was clean it up, and then we'll make a little retainer so that it doesn't come down the street and straight in our driveway. That's a simple... when we first started here, it was just jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen the photo.
I have, yeah.
Now, someone else might say, well, why didn't you buy a purpose-built building? Well, you could, but we ended up building this for $35,000 Australian. And if you even bought a purpose-built building here, it'd be $100,000. So there's an element of how much bang for the buck do you want? I mean, we all want some bang for our buck, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, and are you going to invest where you get more bang for your buck, or where you're just going to throw it down the drain?
Of course, and I think, you know, a lot of people in Australia and other countries invest in a lot of these, you know, third world countries, you know, and these countries that need the help, but their dollar goes so much more in those countries than back at home.
Totally.
And also back home, we've got more red tape, we've got more bureaucracy, we've got more rules and guidelines, and in some cases that's needed.
It is.
However, over here, they don't let that get away in the way of progress, and I think that's a really critical thing as well.
Well, you build here in the remote areas, you build, and then when you build, they come along and look at it, and they give you your permits.
Yeah.
So in Australia, if I was going to start a school in Australia, they'd be saying to me, oh, this car park, you know, disabled toilets, etc., etc. Here, none of that. In fact, when we put in the toilets here, the children had never seen a sit-down toilet. So for the first 2 or 3 days the school was open, all they're doing is going and bringing their mates to this toilet. Oh, wow. I wonder how you use it. You know, so some of them were standing up on it and some of them were sitting down on it. And it was amusement, totally. Now, you imagine a toilet, you know, we just take a toilet for granted.
Yeah, we do. We take a lot for granted. John, I picked up on something earlier. You said you knew that there was something more. Now, tell me, at 21 years of age,
Yeah.
Where did that spark come from in your upbringing?
I grew up on a farm in a remote Victorian town, and there was like 10 families in that town. And, you know, it was like, this is it. This is it. This is life. But there was something in me said, no, this can't be all. And there was a fishing village about 15 kilometres away, and one day one of the fishermen said to me, oh, John, would you want to come and work for me? And I said, oh, but I'm already got a job. And he said, well, look, I was working for his brother, actually, as a mechanic. And he said, well, I'll have a chat to my brother. You come and work with me when the weather's good. Continue to work with my brother, you know, in the off time. So farming, mechanic, fishing, that was my world. But it gave me enough money to then make my first trip to Bali in 1974. And from there, it was like, this isn't it. This isn't the end. And so it was, how do you get outside the box you've been born in? That's what we do here with these kids. By having people like yourself and others come, and a lot of them are young people that come. We last week we had a team of around from 18 to 25.
Yep.
10 people. And we said, what are we going to do? Well, there's a lot of rubbish on the beach. we took down some of those sacks, and each of those people, 10 young people, had 4 students each, 4 of our students each.
Yep.
And their job was to go up and down the beach and pick up trash. Well, these bags are about yay big, and they all picked up 2 bags each. And the beach was totally clean. So the influence of that was the next day, the dirtiest place on our lane here was cleaned up.
Yep.
And is it a coincidence that they saw the kids from the village cleaning up and they maybe convicted them of the rubbish that's around them?
Yep.
You know, I mean, this is simple stuff, but it's evident. And, you know, like there's so much rubbish everywhere. You've seen it. You know, like you come from Australia, and I remember in the 70s when they had the Clean Up Australia program, people in Australia just throw their rubbish out the window of the car, you know.
Yeah.
But we had the Clean Up Australia program, and it was very successful in making people aware. Now, rubbish is a very small thing, but it's, you know, at our other school, twice a year, all the students go out into the village and pick up trash. They call it trash here. And then the adults see their children cleaning up the town, and that's the influence that you can have. But why do we teach the children? Well, adults are set in their ways. And we realised when we first came here full time, we tried with the adults, and you can only go so far with but these children are like little sponges, and there's just a desire for them to leap into the unknown, whereas with adults, they're just stuck in what they know. And you know yourself, as you get older, it's more and more difficult for you to step into something unless you give yourself permission to do that. So Murray gives me permission to lead the way, and I give her permission to be able to fulfil her part in that. When she would say to me, John, if I hadn't married you, I wouldn't have done any of this. But I'm not saying that to boast. I'm just saying that.
But without Made, you wouldn't have done any of it either.
Well, I can't, because she's integral part. She speaks the language. She knows the culture. She's talking with people, and if I can't understand it, I know Indonesian fairly well. But if I can't understand the Balinese language, she's onto it. And so, yeah, it's definitely not one way. Without Made, I wouldn't be doing it. I'd probably still be fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do? We stepped out of the fishing industry thinking, you have a mechanism in life to make finances. Mine was basically fishing for 40 years, and then we got to step out onto the water with no income, sold up, and just trust, right? And then, you know, you're building something, you're hitting a few home runs, but in all of that process, it's as if you're getting nowhere.
Correct.
Like you're going to have to push against a wall for a long time before you actually find that opening in the door and walk through it and find, geez, I was pushing against a wall and the door was there all the time.
Yeah.
But you will never find the door unless you push against the wall.
Yeah.
And life's like that, Steve. You've seen that in your own life. And, you know, like Steve's been coming up and we've been sharing with him about different things. And Steve's been on a journey as well of, I want to have a purpose in my life that's bigger than making money. And I think that's the key to being able to help a community, not thinking, what's in it for me? Now, these people who live all around us, one guy said to me, an old Balinese from the other village we were in, he said, John, there's many people came up for a day and helped us. But he said, you've come up and loved us. And I didn't even think about that. But he said, you've showed us something that we think Westerners are only here to make money out of us. That's what he said.
Yep.
He said, everybody who comes in tourism is making money out of us through tourism. We're either employed in tourism or, we're supplying tourism. And that's, do you want your life just to be about supply and demand?
No.
I mean, really, you'll never love anyone genuinely if it's just about supply and demand. Even if your marriage life is about supply and demand, right? And now, we all need to eat, we all need to provide, and, you want to be the best provider you can be.
Correct.
But we also, there's a genuine need for love. There's a genuine need for affection. These kids, Mate would say, when she was young, they were one of 9 siblings, and this really hit home to me. She knew that her dad loved her because she was the only one he'd asked to go and get a cigarette for him, right? And I thought, what? And she said, yeah, I had to light it and give it to him. Now, he didn't choose any of my other siblings to do that. I was the one. I said, so you felt that was love because that little show of importance, it's so much bigger than that. But, what are the things that I do? I've got to think about what are the things that I can do for Steve that he knows that he's just not a cash cow, right? Now, I don't know how you see that, but, maybe you'd like to say that we're not just bleeding here. I mean, that came up early when your wife said, oh, John, Steve's just an easy touch. And I said, well, look, Tracy, I said, if you don't agree with what Steve's planning, there's no way in the world we want to be, because if you're not on the same page with your giving, right, then it's really, it becomes a problem because one person will want to do something, the other person doesn't want, and so straight away we got that one sorted, didn't we? You knew it wasn't about money.
Correct.
And so we operate with everybody on the same lines.
I think one of the key things for me right from the start when I met yourself and Mate and I visited the school, I felt that connection to the community. And you were talking about how you used to go to the villages. And I remember back in 2015, we went and saw a couple of villages that were down in the towns, but then we also hiked up to some of the villages. And it was amazing. These people in these villages actually basically had not even 2 cents to rub together, right? But they would come out with bottles of water and they would come out with biscuits that they'd made and they'd fruit that they'd picked from their own orchard. And the joy and the love and the compassion that they were showing, and they had nothing. They got absolutely nothing. But their smiles when you walked into the village was just beautiful. And I think one of the key things as well that I found is that right from day dot, I knew that there was authenticity in what yourself and Mate were doing. And I felt that the last 10 years of our relationship, because what I've seen is that any time that you've reached out or I've reached out and said, how can we help? And I love, you've got the shirt on that says, how can we help? But it was always about, okay, well, we're looking at this project or we're looking at this extension or, like last Christmas when we reached out and said, how can we help? And you were saying we'd like to get, 10 new computers.
Yes.
Which we invested in and got the new computers here in the computer room.
And you've been here watching what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, in a lot of circumstances, people might have got those computers and they sat there and did nothing. Yeah. But I want to tell you, they've been running hot now for 6 months.
Yeah.
And you've seen, like we teach Word, we teach PowerPoint, we teach Excel. But of course, Word is the main thing because they go to learn English. But if they learn English and they get a job, they may need to use Excel.
That's right.
And then they may need to use PowerPoint.
Yep.
But you were teaching them yesterday on how to get a photo and how to adjust a photo, how to take the background out, and how did they go?
It was brilliant. I just loved seeing over the 3 days we kind of taught them, we let them play themselves and let them kind of investigate and kind of do some editing on photos. And then to the third day, we kind of took that to another level and we got them to do their own photo and put them in, whether they wanted to be in a beach background or the snow, or as Made wanted to go to the moon.
Yes.
But what I loved to see was that they were so focused. And as I said to you, they were so interested.
Yes.
And, it was interesting when they were going to print out their photos on day 3. You could just see the excitement of them printing their photos and seeing what they created. And then they got to show the rest of the students, which was fantastic.
It is.
And then they would have taken those home and said, hey, Mum, I went to the beach today, or, I went to the moon, or, I went to the snow. And it's fun. It's joy.
Yes.
We had some treats, we had some fun, some laughs, and it was just beautiful to see, upgrading their skills a little bit in that photo editing. And as I said to you, seeing, obviously, anyone can give money, anyone can give computers, anyone can give materialistic items, but actually coming and experiencing Hope School 2 here, as I did Hope School 1 a number of times as well, helps connect to what you've invested, but it also giving them your time, and we say in the world, the time is the most precious thing you can give.
It is.
So for me, being able to come here, and as I said to you, I'm going to go back to Australia and I'm going to work on some lesson plans that you can kind of put into.
That'd be great.
Until you get a computer teacher.
Well, for me, I've got none of that. I've taught myself computer, and it's basic. But basic is where you start. You can take basic, and if you've got enough skills to be experimental, then you can be self-taught virtually. And I only ever really needed to type up some letters and stuff. So I didn't need to go into Excel. But then as I started to need to do accounting and that, I had to learn about Excel and how to get all your columns, and still haven't known that, still don't get that real well, but it's basic. Now, if they go and we do interviews, practice interviews, we do resumes, teach Steve on the first day here, got them to draw up a resume that he'd already pre-planned, because many of our students have already got jobs. When they went to an interview for a job, even though they were Balinese employers who were down in the city, they interviewed them in English. And the people who we've taught said, if I hadn't have learned English, I wouldn't have got that job, because the employer interviewed them in English and they could answer in English. He said, you've got the job. Difference between the guy who didn't know, and we have that all the time. We've got kids who say to us, if only I'd learnt more while I was with you. And so that's the thing in life. If you've got an opportunity to do something, do it to the best of your ability. We can always look to the left or look to the right or say, when I get there, but it's today that I've got. Today I've got with you, Steve. I haven't got you tomorrow.
No.
You're gone. And I'll be thinking, gee, we should have done that snorkeling, right? But we went to the waterfall, but the joy of it all is that you weren't here so much as a tourist. You were here to see how your investment was going. And on a scale out of, if you were thinking of the world and the things that you've invested in the world, your investment here with these computers, on a scale out of 9 to 10, how does that investment shape up with some of your other investments?
Before we get back into the episode, from time to time you might have a burning question, a guest recommendation, a comment or some feedback, which I always appreciate. If so, I'd love to continue the conversation after this episode, so let's connect. I'm easy to find, but the best place to engage and connect is on Instagram, @TheSteveHodgson. But that's enough from me. Let's get back into the episode.
It's priceless, but I actually think it's a better return than any investment that you can get in this world.
Yes.
For me, I can't wait to come back again.
And for me also, there's a lot of people who we know are not like you, Steve. They kind of, it's like, here, give the money and you get out of my hair.
Well, it's a tick and fleck almost, isn't it? I've given money. That's good.
Yeah, and what, look, there's a lot of people like you. They want to come up. They want to be with the kids. Some people have helped us build these buildings, and that's a different relationship as well because it's hands-on, it's physical, it's shifting rocks, it's mixing cement. We do all that. And the community looked when we were building this and said, look at John and Muddy. Nobody in our village works like that. Yeah. And so how do you instill a work ethic in a people? If people feel like they're working for nothing and that's their life, but what about if you give them the incentive to work for something, right? What about if you can give them the incentive that they can actually be working for a future for their children, right? Yeah. And so that's part of it as well, influencing them to know that their children's future is going to be good.
Yeah.
Don't we want our children's future to be good?
Of course we do. We want the best for our children.
My children, Mane and my children and our grandchildren, their futures are good, but they're in good situations in Australia. We don't have to worry about them. By and large, they're never going to want for anything, given that things stay the same.
Yep.
But these children, they've got nothing. And we're in a position, with your help, to give them something that they could be anything at the end of this.
Yep.
Some of them want to be doctors and some of them want to be lawyers. We've got a young girl, just 17, starting her law degree. And that's just like we've had her since she was
that gives me goosebumps.
4. She was this big when she first came to us. Now she's doing a law degree, and I'd cry because when she was 4, we had no idea what she would be. And why does she want to do a law degree? She said because there's so many poor people who can't afford a lawyer and they're getting screwed over by the big boys. She wants to be able to help poor people to be represented well in the courts.
Yep.
Right now, here in Indonesia, if you don't get a lawyer unless you pay. That's the way it is. It's not like Australia where you can get a lawyer.
Yep.
So that's one part of it. It might be a doctor. It might be whoever it is. Some of them go overseas. We've got students in Japan. We've got students in... And so you say, well, why would an English student go to Japan? Well, through their English, they've got good jobs in Japan. So you don't know where you're going to end up, see?
No.
I mean, where are you going to end up?
Who knows?
But the journey is so exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, for me, I'm in my 70s. I never thought in my 50s that I'd still be here in my 70s. But now I'm thinking, if we can get through to 80, that'll be good.
Yeah.
And, what do you think? Do you think we'll make it?
Yeah, well, I think you'll get there before me. John, talk to me about, you set up Hope School 1, which I saw when it was just, the site works were being done and there was a bit of roofing on some kind of supports. We put some tanks in. Now there's Hope School 2.
Yes.
You've also, through partnership in Sri Lanka, there's a Hope School 3 now.
Yes.
And there's also possible plans, if you're called to, to open another one, maybe on the western side of, the northwestern side of Bali here.
So we never kind of thought we would be running schools. Years ago, there was no way in the world. I'm not a teacher. Mare's not a teacher. So we never thought we'd be running schools. But when we started to come into the villages and we started to realise that teaching English and computer was going to be a key part of helping young people to get out of poverty, we just started going from village to village, as I said before. But then we started to realise that a permanent place was so necessary, and that's why the education system in all countries have permanent schools where people can go. And so also in those travels, we've been to villages in areas And so how do we start Hope School? One, we'd been in that area for 5 years before we started.
Building the foundation.
Yeah, well, we didn't know at the time. We were just going from village to village until such time as we just felt we just needed to have a permanent place. Instead of us going to them, they came to us. And the same here. During COVID, all the people who worked in this area down in the city, with COVID, they had to come back. So for 2 years, we fed them rice. We just gave them bags of rice. Every week we come up, there were people sitting around doing nothing. They had nothing. We did clinics. So now this other place where we can start, given that we get this up and running, is to the west of Bali on the north coast. We've been there a lot already teaching, just with a bunch of computers. And honestly, first time we went there, 40 kids. Second time we went there, 60 kids. And same thing, they're all just so keen. So in my heart, how are we going to pull this off, Well, one step at a time. We've got to get this running and established, and we've got to get good teachers here. So, out of nowhere, we got Julie for this school. We were sitting in a little cafe having a meal, and we heard some conversation from a table across from us. This Balinese woman who lives in this area was talking some English and Balinese and Indonesian, but I picked up on that her English wasn't bad. And we said, excuse, can we come and sit next to you? And so this is kind of how it happens. It's almost as if it's accidental. But then Julie related to us after she'd been working with us for a while that her dream from a child, 16-year-old, was that she would teach English one day. Now, she always thought she'll have to go to the city or go to the other side of the world to teach English. But it turns out she's in her own village being able to teach her own people skills. And the important thing for us is these kids, if you're going to influence them, they've got to see someone of their own. It's all right for Steve to come in and say, you can do this. It's all right for someone to come in from a Western society and say, you can do this. But for them to see one of their own, Julie, right? And now you've been with Julie now, working with us these last few days. So, what kind of a character do you see there?
She's just a giver. She just is a person of service who just loves to see the kids grow, loves to see them happy, joyful. She's just got a beautiful heart.
And she's not a trained teacher.
No.
And yet, how does she teach?
Like a teacher.
Right.
Trained teacher.
Better than a teacher. Because she's not just teaching by route, she's teaching by heart.
Yeah.
Like we've got the slow kids, she'll sit there for half an hour with each slow kid. And she's not impatient. She'll help them through that lesson. There's some of the boys that come, and they're virtually illiterate when they get here because they never paid any attention at school, like a lot of boys, There are some girls, we've got a few slow girls, but she sits there and just helps them with every word.
Yep.
Just helps them with every word. She doesn't get mad with them and go, you've already learnt that. Doesn't get mad with them. She never gets mad with them.
Yep.
You remember back at school when your teacher get mad with you? I remember when I was at school, I was one of them slow kids. Teacher get mad with me, they wouldn't even bother with you in the end. They'd go over to the kids that were brilliant, the kids that are finished first. They're concentrating on the kids that are finished first. We're concentrating on the kids that nobody would concentrate on.
Yep.
And what are we going to do? We're going to pull them through to being successful. Not because we taught them much, but we love them much. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We love them to the point where they don't feel like, the slow kid, he gets so much negative from teachers and the world and, like your dad might or your mum might say, you'll never be anything because your grades are low. Is that right?
Yep.
But we don't focus on that. We just focus on, we've got these children, let's do the best we can while they're here.
Yeah. Well, as soon as they come through those front gates, right,
Yeah.
they're already ahead.
Yeah. Yep.
They're already ahead because they've made the commitment to themselves
Yes.
that they want to learn more.
That's right.
They want to interact more.
And they're the kids we want.
That's exactly
And
right.
I mean, the kids that go down the beach instead, we still love them.
Yep.
Yeah, we were swimming with them the other day. We're having a ball with them.
Yeah.
Hey,
Good.
Now, we still love them, so probably through that love, one day they will come again. But, you know, it's all too hard. You go from having no language to having a little bit of language. You're stepping into it. But you've got to make a choice so I can get past that language barrier. That applies to everything in life. It doesn't matter what you learn, it's a computer. You know, like I was in the fishing industry for 40 years, and sometimes we'd have people come out on the boat and you'd notice the boat is drifting, so you'd start the engines up, lift the anchor and drop it again, and they'd say, John, I didn't even know the boat was drifting, right? And so the skills that you learn, one, by book learning, but you don't learn that the anchor's drifting. You've got to learn that. Now, to become a licensed skipper in Australia, when I did mine, you had to have 4 years already working on a license, under a licensed skipper. Why? Because you learn that the boat is drifting.
Yep.
Right? And, you know, sometimes in your own life, I use this analogy in life, in that we can be drifting along aimlessly, but it's not until we hit the rocks that we realise we're drifting. And so the drift and being anchored is important. The drift is important because it starts to teach you a little bit of urgency. As there's rocks behind me, I need to be out there. Can I get that motor started and the anchor up and get to where I should be? Or will I go on the rocks?
Yep.
Yeah, and you would have had that in your life.
Yep.
So you anchor, you go out and you anchor to something that's secure. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so I see Steve now and known him, and along the journey we've been able to talk about each other's life situations. And Steve is moving towards his plan, purpose. Like Steve has said to me, oh, John, I'll go by the beach for $30 a night, do some snorkeling, chill out, because if you stay in the environment like this, there's always something to do. And I've got to get money away. It's just as important for you to unwind as your spouse to unwind.
Correct.
Now, you worked in a very stressful environment in what you're in, and so is your wife. Very important that you took that time out on occasions. I don't know about you, but for me it probably works out to be about, 10, 15, 20 days a year that I need that.
Yep.
Right? Like super need that. But then weekends we take a day out. We go to church on Sundays. We just kind of dedicate that time to God. I wouldn't say that we're religious fanatics, but God created the world in 7 days, and on the seventh day he rested. 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. I mean, that wasn't for his benefit, that was for our benefit, right? So if you're working 7 days a week, it's actually counterproductive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, correct.
And I think you would have learned that. I think 1 day a week you at least need to chill out. Now, we've got the beach down here now, and there's good snorkeling. And so a good chill out, like once a week here, is to just go for a snorkel over the coral reef. Turtle, and stingray. And, it's like I'm underwater on my own.
Yep.
But I'm still thinking, when we bought this place, started, we didn't even know that coral reef was there. We didn't come because of the coral reef. I think the coral reef came because of us. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely.
I mean, if you're going to pursue something with all your heart, with no intention of looking at what's in it for me, I categorically tell you there'll be a deal in it.
Yeah.
There'll be a good deal that will be a bonus.
Yeah.
We never go into anything and do anything thinking what's in it. But God, because he's so good, he makes us deal along the way.
Yep.
I can tell you so many times that we've given that and there's been something that down the track, we've given away cars, motorbikes. And Mate said, well, you've just given away our car. What are we going to do for a car? Don't worry, there'll be one comes. And then, out of the blue, seemingly out of the blue.
Yeah.
Life's like that, Steve.
It is, yeah.
But you said it before. You said it's giving with a pure motive. Like you've given to this. You have not been dangling strings and making us like a puppet, pulling our strings. You've given that money unconditionally, and we're just so grateful for that.
And we were having this conversation earlier about, one of the key things when you give is giving with no expectation that you'll get anything in return.
Sure.
And that's where the authenticity or the genuine nature of giving,
Yes.
whether it's small, whether it's big, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that if you're going to give something to someone
Yes.
and not expect anything in return,
Yeah.
that is true giving.
That's true, Gibby.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you got to work out.
This is going to switch off in a sec because it only goes for an hour. So I'll just,
Are we gone for an hour? Or?
I'm just going to finish off with some final questions. But
Time flies when you're having fun.
yeah.
I'm a bit lost for words.
So, John, it's been great to catch up today. I always ask anyone that comes on the podcast and I record an episode with just a few questions. And the first question I'd love to ask you is, what is your definition of success? And how has that changed through your life?
Well, success for me was when I was younger, make $1 million. But hey, when you've made $1 million, where do you go? And it changed to having a desire to help others.
Yep.
And so it went from being what I need to being what do they need to being what does the community need, and starting to see the bigger picture of if the community is in good shape, everyone will be in good shape. Yes.
Yep.
And I think that's what I'm seeing now. I see we come into a community and we can transform the community by helping the children.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And who would you say in your life has been your greatest teacher?
Ooh, we had a leader from Sydney, Pastor Ray McMartin, in our lives. And he was, we knew him for probably 20 odd years, and he passed away about 10 years ago. And he was just a key figure in being able to relate those kind of truths without making you feel inadequate. And so if we're going to encourage people in life, we need someone in our life who we can look up to, who we can relate to, who just make us feel good about ourselves.
Yep.
You don't need someone telling you that you're a failure all the time. You need someone to encourage you, 90% encouragement and maybe 10% of you could probably look at doing this. Now, we went back to Sydney one day when we were doing these computers, and he just threw a disc on the desk, right? This is the kind of guy he was. He'd never been to Indonesia, he didn't know anything about Indonesia. He threw a disc on the desk, and it was the HOPE program that we teach the kids, the interactive, right? We added a component of Indonesian to it. So you read the sentence and you choose the picture that's right for it, yes?
Yep.
He threw that on the desk, and it took me 6 months or 8 months to even open it up. And when I opened it up, I thought, you idiot, you should have opened it up when you first got it. But we loaded it onto all the computers. It's been loaded onto hundreds of computers. It's on these computers now. And it's an interactive computer program by Zion Publishers in the US, Illinois.
Yeah.
Right? They do it for free. You can copy it. You can't sell it. And he just threw that on the desk. He said, this might be of use to you. And it became the tool that inspired all of this. Right? Now, he knew nothing about that. He knew nothing about Indonesia. He just said, oh, if you're going to be teaching computer, this might help.
Yep.
And that's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But he used to hold an auction every year, right, at his church in Blacktown. And his daughter runs the church now. But he used to hold an auction every year, and he'd be auctioning all kinds of stuff. And one day, there at the auction, there was a little book that he had reprinted in India. And no one else in the Western world wanted to reprint it anymore because it was an old-fashioned type of book. But it had principles for life and how to achieve them. And he'd got down to 10 of these books before the reprint, right? So he'd reprinted 2,000 and got down to 10. And at this auction, we happened to be back in Sydney at the time at this auction. I wanted one of those books, right? But there was a lot of bidding on them. But I paid a premium price for that. Now, whatever he raised at that auction every year, he gave away to the various things that they supported. And so that's just another way that he found of being able to raise money. You know, and people love an auction, don't they?
Yeah. But you've got to be creative with fundraising.
So, yeah, he had a big influence on our life. And you know what? He was like a father to Mate and I. He was one who actually said to us when we were out in Blacktown going from door to door, telling them we were going to be doing meetings in the Blacktown Hall. He said, John and Mate, he said, you're going to be going overseas. And that was like 10 years before we went overseas. And he said, if you haven't got anybody yet to back you, he said, I'll back you. And I said, like later on when we were talking to him, I said, how's that going to work, Ray? I mean, we've only just met you. He said, yeah, but I can see what's the call that's on your life. And I said, so what do we do? He said, send us a photo of you both, one each. And he said, I'll get my secretary to do up a credential for you. Now, you know what? He did that without virtually knowing us, but he knew us from what he discerned.
Yep.
And he gave us that credential, and that went into my wallet, and Mate went into her wallet, right? But you know what? We never, ever had to use it. We never had to pull it out and say, because the gift and the call made way. Wherever we went. When I was younger, I tried to get in. I had this desire to work overseas in this capacity. And I applied to some of the big professional organisations that are around. And they said, you've got no education, mate. You're no good to us. We need doctors, we need lawyers, we need... And I said, so I went away from that pretty disappointed, thinking that, surely there's a place for me in the world, right?
Yep.
But it took a guy like that, right? And I did study. I was working as a fisherman, but I also did a study by correspondence over 10 years. So I wasn't like a complete novice in the sense of having an education. But Ray didn't look at any of that. There was one thing he said to me, though. He said, do you drink alcohol? I said, no, I don't. I gave up drinking, 20-odd years ago. He said, yeah, I know you have. He said, I was just checking you. Because he said, this is his statement. He said, I've seen alcohol destroy more relationships than it's put together. And he said, so under our organisation, which was Family Life Ministries, he said, we require that people who are under our organisation are non-drinkers. He said, I don't frown on people who have a drink, But he said for people of influence who are going to help perhaps people who came out of alcohol and struggling, they need to have someone who doesn't drink.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. I've seen people take one drink and they're back on a bender. And they might have been off it for 6 months.
Yep.
You would have seen it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not saying, hey, don't drink, but that was one thing that he required. I didn't mind because I wasn't drinking. I haven't had a drink for 40 years now. But I don't miss it. Yeah. Do you think I need it?
No.
Yeah. How do you think I operate?
You're high on life.
Well, high and dry. The anchor slipped.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good, Steve.
No, it's awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, John. It's been great. Thank you for the hospitality over the last week here in the school.
Pleasure.
I'm looking forward to coming back. As I said, it's not a goodbye today, it's a see you soon. Now, for those that would like to reach out to Provision International and yourself and Made, maybe even organise to pop in and visit on a school day here, what's the best way for people to...
We've got a website called provision.com. Yep.
Okay.
You've
also got a Facebook page.
Yeah, Facebook page, John and Made Stevens.
Yep.
John Made Stevens, M-A-D-E. But, provision.com.au.
All good. And we'll put all those details in the show reel notes for the episode. But just wanted to, you and Made, what you've done and the relationship we've had over the last 10 years, it's truly inspiring. And
Thanks.
Definitely inspired me. And I know you'll be serving right up until that last breath.
Well, I said to Made, I want to die in the saddle. And she said, well, I better get your horse.
No,
Apparently it's a 250 Honda.
It's been awesome to catch up. I've loved your insights, as I know people watching and listening would have as well. And love you like a brother.
Thank you.
And
we do
forward
too.
to continuing the connection and continuing the connection in the villages and the schools that I continue to support.
And I would just say this, Steve, your world in this area has just begun. But, I can see now what's going to open up for you as you've said, okay, enough's enough, and now stepped into this new realm that you've been fostering. You've fostered it to the point where it's got you, right? And you're now leaving a lot of that behind, which was a tool on the way.
Yep.
So I see it exploding, mate, internationally. And I just bless you to be able to fulfil that in your life.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Love you, brother. Thanks, John. Good. Done.
Yeah, no, I've been wanting to say that, that